I didn't buy anything expensive this month, so why did I spend so much money? Hi, I'm Dave, and I'm terrible with money, but I'm trying to fix it. I always thought money problems came from big purchases, cars, gadgets, expensive stuff, the obvious things, the kind of purchases you can point at and say, there's the problem. But when I actually looked at my spending, something way more annoying showed up. Most of my money disappeared in small amounts. Tiny charges, repeated habits, little decisions I barely noticed while I was making them. That was the uncomfortable part. I wasn't being ruined by one huge mistake. I was being slowly drained by 100 forgettable ones. And that was honestly harder to accept because big mistakes are easier to blame. Feel dramatic, clean, understandable. Small leaks are worse. They're boring, repetitive, embarrassingly normal. A coffee here, a snack there, one delivery order because I'm tired, one random purchase because it was on sale, one subscription because canceling felt annoying. None of it feels serious in the moment. That's exactly why it gets so expensive over time. So I decided to try something for 30 days. I wanted to stop wasting money, not stop living, not become a monk, just cut the obvious nonsense. No random snacks, no delivery food, no impulse purchases, no useless subscriptions, quietly collecting money from my account while contributing absolutely nothing to my life. The goal was simple: stop the leaks and find out how much damage the small stuff was actually doing. The first thing I noticed was how fast my brain tried to defend every little expense. Coffee, necessary; snack, deserved; delivery, practical; random purchase online, maybe useful eventually. That was my problem in one sentence. I had a reason for everything, and those reasons sounded incredibly convincing, right, up until I looked at the total. The spending never felt dumb while I was doing it. It felt normal. That's what made it dangerous. Then came coffee. This one hurt my feelings. Bought one, looked at the price, and thought, it's just $6. That's what I tell myself every time. $6 is not just $6 when it keeps happening. I did the math. 6 times 20. $120 from coffee. That escalated quickly. It turns out just $6 becomes financially disrespectful when you repeat it enough times. And the crazy part is that coffee never felt like the problem. It felt small, normal, almost invisible. That's why small spending is so dangerous. It doesn't scare you. It doesn't ask for attention. It just becomes part of your routine until your routine starts costing more than you think. And apparently my routine had expensive taste. Once I saw the monthly total, I stopped seeing coffee as a cute little treat and started seeing it as a subscription I was emotionally renewing every day. Ooh. Maybe a coffee wasn't the best investment. And the next part was harder than I expected because once I decided to stop wasting money, I had to start noticing the exact moments where wasting usually begins. Walking past a cafe, standing in a checkout line, scrolling online when I'm bored, sitting at home at night, convincing myself I need a reward for surviving the day. The spending didn't start at checkout. It started way earlier, in the tiny moment where my brain said, why not? One afternoon, I walked past a coffee shop, looked at the sign, and actually had to say to myself, stay strong, Dave. Which sounds dramatic until you realize I was saying it about a latte, not a life-threatening situation. But that's the weird thing about habits. They don't feel powerful until you try to interrupt them. Then suddenly your brain starts acting like you're under attack because you didn't buy cinnamon-flavored motivation in a paper cup. Then came online ads. Of course, they showed up exactly when my motivation was weakest. Limited time offer, last chance, only a few left. They always say that. That's their whole personality. And the annoying part is that even when you know the trick, it still works a little. Your brain still goes, well, what if this is the one time it's actually urgent? That's how impulse spending survives. Not by being logical, by being emotionally well-timed. That was one of the most useful things. It forced me to admit that a lot of my spending wasn't planned. It was reactive. I wasn't deciding in some calm, rational state. I was responding to boredom, convenience, urgency, and tiny emotional pushes. Once I saw that clearly, my habits started looking less like personality and more like a system that had quietly trained me to spend. And that was a very annoying thing to realize about myself. But the biggest leak was delivery food. No contest. I opened my old receipts and immediately felt attacked by my own choices. $24, $31, $27. Apparently, I like paying restaurant prices for cold food. Delivery felt convenient in the moment, but looking at the totals later was like discovering I had been outsourcing my budget destruction to an app. And once I looked closer, it got even worse. Because it was never just the meal. It was the meal, the service fee, the delivery fee, the tip, sometimes some mysterious extra charge that looked like it had been invented specifically to punish me for being too tired to cook. Delivery wasn't just expensive, it was sneaky expensive. The first number was never the real number. The real number always showed up later, smiling. And somehow I had gotten used to paying extra, not for better food, but for not having to stand up and make it myself. So I started cooking at home more. And I'm not going to pretend this turned me into some graceful meal prep genius. It mostly turned me into a man standing in his kitchen trying to figure out whether eggs and rice count as a strategy. But it worked. The more I cooked, the more obvious delivery looked for what it really was in my life. Not food, but convenience with a massive markup. Somewhere in the second week, something strange started happening. The hard part wasn't saving money. The weird part was how easy it was once I stopped the obvious leaks. I kept expecting this challenge to feel like extreme discipline. Instead, it mostly felt like finally noticing things I should have noticed earlier. That was the self-realization moment for me. I didn't have one giant spending problem. I had a lot of small habits I had never bothered to question. I also started feeling different around spending. Slower, less automatic, less likely to buy something just because I happened to be standing near it. Once the default leaks were gone, every unnecessary purchase became easier to spot. Not because I became financially enlightened overnight, just because the noise was lower. And when the noise gets lower, the dumb decisions become much easier to hear. That was probably the most useful part of the whole month. Not guilt, not restriction, clarity. By the end of the month, I added everything up. And the result was honestly ridiculous. I saved around $300 from things I didn't even need. That's what got me. Not luxury cuts. It's not giant sacrifices. Just less coffee, less delivery, fewer random snack, fewer impulse clicks, fewer quiet leaks. $300 had been disappearing through habits I barely respected enough to notice. Money doesn't usually disappear in big explosions. It leaks slowly. And most people never notice the leak because leaks look harmless. They look like coffee, like snacks, like convenience, like one small purchase that doesn't seem worth thinking about until you repeat it enough times. Then, suddenly, it's not one purchase. It's a system. And that system is quietly draining you while you blame everything else. So that's the lesson I'm taking from this. Most people don't notice how much money they waste because waste rarely looks dramatic in real time. It looks normal, familiar, easy. Once you see the leak, you can actually do something about it. If this felt a little too relatable, subscribe and hit like. I'll see you in the next one.